Doo-doo-doo. Can you guys hear me? Hold on. What's happening here? Whoever in the comments said that I burnt my tea and I had to start over again, you're absolutely correct. Salute. Apologies for being late. Can you guys hear me clearly? I just got a text message from a friend in Canada who just told me I'm being quoted on her LinkedIn. So it's the problem. Everyone expects me to be a super professional. Then they realize I'm just a guy here with an iPhone and a microphone that knows a little bit about investing, and I can translate the bullshit from the market. This is an interesting comment. This is really the purpose of my YouTube channel right here. Thank you for reassuring I made the right choice, British, a few months back while everyone was bashing me, gave me confidence. That's really the point here. We're dealing with an asset that is new. We're dealing with an asset that is scary, volatile, completely new, completely, you know, not untested, but you get what I mean from an investment perspective. It's completely new, and so there's going to be a lot of doubt, and that doubt has to be quenched, and I'm here for that. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to share my perspective, and hopefully that gives more people more conviction. Bram, what are you doing awake? Surely it's a bit late in the Netherlands. I'm still buying more, yeah. I buy all the time. I buy more like just, I don't know how to say this exactly. It's not like strategically, but I'll just buy on red days now. I don't really think about it too much. Oh, you're in Thailand, of course. That's where all the dirty Dutch men go. I'm just kidding, my friend. Um, let's read this message. Hold on. About my LinkedIn fame. It's a quote with the Bitwise logo from Stephen Smith, who says, as British Hole says, hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be poured into shilling these ETFs. Very, very bullish. Fantastic. The message is getting out. We are winning. Somebody asked what cigar I'm smoking. I'm smoking a Padron 1964 number 6. I think it's the number 9. Okay, let's get everyone in here. There's 329 people. so far. I'm sure you've gained some value in this live stream of me lighting my cigar and drinking my tea. So therefore, please subscribe. Please subscribe, please like, please share. The good news is we're winning, right? At least it looks like we're winning. Hopefully, if we are able to help as many people as possible build enough conviction to get to 1 Bitcoin, if not more, then that'll be a good win. I will consider my time on YouTube, my time on Twitter, everything else worth it. So what's happened today? Today, a very important, as everybody knows, this is a live stream. So this is not the usual super professional videos that I do. This is a live stream, so I'm just here to catch up with you guys, talk about what's going on in the market, talk about, what's happening in the world right now. We've had a few changes recently, especially in the last couple days. Things are getting exciting. We're heading into the 18th of December. Historically, the 22nd of December to the first, basically 22nd of December and the first 2 trading days in January on what is known as the Santa Claus Rally. And the Santa Claus Rally comes around every year. Santa Claus brings some gifts for everyone, and everyone feels a bit bullish. The difference is this time, doom and gloom boomers can take a hike because the NASDAQ is at an all-time high, the S&P is at an all-time high. And while us Bitcoiners don't really focus too much on that, I do. And the reason for that is it's a symbol of where risk on versus risk off is going. The fact that there's $5 to $7 trillion sitting on the sidelines and the stock market is at an all-time high is pretty important. It's pretty important right now. We are about to move. Someone just said, do you own any game coins? Hold on a second. Gaming altcoins. Block. Done. Do I own any gaming altcoins? I just did a podcast with, it's called the Mr. M podcast. And it's the guy asked me, pretty cool guy, he asked me about whether I have space for Ethereum in my portfolio or not, or anything else. Let me just see, this thing keeps focusing and not focusing. Let me see if this is better. I think it keeps trying to adjust for the smoke. Anyway, this guy asked me whether I have time for Ethereum or anything like that in my portfolio. I put the snippet of that little piece on my Twitter, so I would highly recommend you go watch that. It's pretty important and highlights the message of why Bitcoin is the most important thing that I personally can focus on right now, and why I think everyone else should focus on Bitcoin right now, and not this other bullshit. But yeah, we've had an interesting couple things happen in the last few days. Firstly, all right, thank you, Frank. Frank watched it, said I liked the response. I appreciate that. That's the real goal of what we're doing here. Otherwise, what's the bloody point? Someone just asked if Derek is here. Listen, Derek, listen. Derek is a special person. Funny thing is now everyone's gonna mention that, and people and all the Dereks of the world that weren't that Derek are gonna wonder what the hell they did. But yeah, so a couple different things have happened. Number one, BlackRock has updated its S-1 filing, and S-1 is basically, let me just read it out to you, right? The basic purpose of an S-1 is to basically tell the SEC what you are going to market to who and have the SEC approve it so that you can send the prospectus out to institutional clients, and then they can decide to read it and buy into the fund or not. It's basically like, let's imagine you did a report on, your car before you sold it, right? It's like all the details of the car. Like, let's make sure that the car is good. It's basically a property diagnostic, for example, right? And so really the purpose of the S1 filing is pretty important, because that's what they can approve the ETF, but if they don't approve the S1, you can't start trading, right? And so basically with the S1, the goal of the S1 is to update the investment objectives and strategies to make them very, very clear and outline the goal of the ETF, outline the risks of the underlying asset, right? In this case, the ETF, or the underlying asset of the ETF, in this case, Bitcoin, the potential risks, outline all the fees and expenses of an S1, outline who's going to be managing it and the organizational structure, et cetera, outline the financial statements and things like that. Most ETFs don't really have big financial statements, but, to outline all of that. Number 6 is basically highlight the distribution and marketing plan about how the ETF is going to be marketed and distributed and all this other stuff. And number 7, you're going to give them basically about the information about the type of asset that the ETF is going to hold. And number 8, all of the tax implications for its investors. This is a prospectus. It is basically a piece of marketing machine, marketing, like a publication to actually tell investors exactly what's involved in the ETF, how it's structured, everything else. If they don't update this and they don't have this approved by the SEC, they can't promote the ETF. So this is extremely important. Now, what is the change that they've made? The change that they've made is they've decided to relinquish the fight that BlackRock had about having an in-kind versus a cash creates ETF. A cash creates ETF was what the SEC has wanted from the beginning, and BlackRock has now bent the knee and said, okay, we'll go with a cash creates ETF. A cash creates ETF is a win for the SEC, and really from an investor's perspective, unless you are a big investor or a sophisticated investor, it's not really going to make much of a difference, right? And so this is not anything that's going to affect the capital coming into Bitcoin. What it will do is it will affect how institutions are allocating, what methods of allocation that they use, etc. But really the point here is that the fact that BlackRock has actually come to the point of saying, okay, we'll run with a cash creates ETF, basically tells you that they're ready to roll, that they are absolutely ready to roll. This is not a conversation that is going to continue for too much longer. This is something that is ready to sell, ready to market, ready to run with, right? This is something that is ready for the market. It's ready for the publication. It's ready for distribution. It's ready for capital. And so that lines up quite nicely. It lines up quite nicely with move this microphone a little bit closer. It lines up pretty nicely with the January 8th, 9th, 10th approval dates that the Bloomberg intelligence guys, Eric and James, have been talking about. It lines up pretty nicely with that. So a cash creates ETF. One of the beautiful things about Bitcoin is that everyone actually likes to pay attention to shit. Nobody in the Bitcoin space knew what a difference between a cash creates and an in-kind ETF was until this started happening with Bitcoin. I love the fact that there's going to be so many more smart people, so many more smart people after this Bitcoin ETF is approved than before. And that's extremely important, right? That's absolutely a great thing. That's a great thing for the market. It's a great thing for the community. It's a great thing for people who are, trying to understand what the fuck is going on in the financial world. Jason, I'm in a bathrobe. Come on. It's not a dressing gown. I'm in a bathrobe. Someone said, I heard you're not supposed to use butane lighters on cigars. Something about it burning the tobacco. Is that BS? No. So the key is this. The problem with butane is it goes 0 to 100 real quick, right? So if I take that flame and I ram it straight that close into the tobacco, it's going to burn the tobacco. So the way to do it properly is to keep the flame a little bit away, so you can't even see it touching it, but the tobacco is getting hot and getting toasted. That's the key. And you really, when you're first lighting the cigar, you didn't see it when I was doing it, but you want to go around the outside, not the inside. Because when you take your first puff, the heat's going to get sucked into the middle. So if you cook the middle too much, it's then going to burn the cigar. Whereas if you go around the outside and then take your first puff, the heat gets sucked into the middle and then it heats it up perfectly. Why do you never show people how to safely buy one Bitcoin and leave it up to scammers in YouTube comments to explain how? Are you a scammer too? Right. Crescent Blade. Crescent Blade. Let me explain to you my role here. My role is to get people to the point where they're even interested in Bitcoin as an asset. My role is not for the people who have only got $1,000 in net worth who are super excited about Bitcoin. My role is to get the people who are worth a couple $1 million minimum and who think life is fucking great in order to start paying attention to Bitcoin, not realizing that they're getting their ass handed to them without even realizing it with the amount of money that's being printed. That's my role. So I don't know exactly what you want me to do. I don't know whether you want me to sit here and hold people's hands and like walk them through how to buy one Bitcoin. But here's what I'll tell you. The smart people that I talk to, that I intend to talk to, will understand that when they ask the question, because they have the spirit of winners, because they have created wealth in their life, when they decide, I want to buy Bitcoin, they will figure it out. They will figure it out because that's who they are. They have created results in their life. Unlike you, that's looking through the comments for somebody to do it for you. As Fast Machine Media said, it ain't fucking rocket science. Crescent. All right, where is he? Goodbye. All right, there we go. So, we've got a very, very interesting time period right now. The conversation about S1s, the S1 filing in an ETF is so far ahead. It's unbelievable, right? This is so far ahead. It is unbelievable. People are sitting here going, hey, when's this ETF going to come? Is it even going to come? Blah, 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 blah. But we're so far ahead just with the fact that this conversation is happening with the SEC, the fact that there are multiple S1 updates happening, the fact that these funds are sitting here coming out and going, oh, the SEC doesn't like this, we're going to change this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. The fact that they're actually even doing this is huge, This tells you that the conversation is already, long in the tooth. This is happening. I like the Nub Connecticut as well. It's an alright cigar. All right, this is happening, right? We're at the point where SEC is telling all these guys, come in, let's talk, let's get this rolling. And then, of course, um, the fact that we're 2 or 3 weeks away, Christmas is here, New Year's is here, and, the date of approval is running up to 8th, 9th, and 10th. And now that this is we're actually to the point where the S1s are changing, all this other stuff, this is extreme likelihood that this is going to happen, right, on those dates, if not before. So if you're sitting around going, hey, maybe this is going to happen, maybe this is not going to happen, you really don't understand how far we have come here. This is extremely important. Someone asked what my ethnicity is, and someone else replied, Black and Indian. I'm going to go back to identifying as a white guy. Yeah, the ETF is at this point imminent. It could come before the holidays. It could come January 8th, 9th, 10th. It could come at some point, but it's basically imminent at this point. The fact that we have got these S1 filings going on, the fact that there's so many updates, the fact that all this is happening is extremely important. It's extremely important, and it sends a lot of messages and a lot of signals to the people who are paying attention, and that's why you're seeing the Bitcoin price, act the way that it's acting. That's why you're seeing the GBTC discount act the way that it's acting. And what's great, while I like and appreciate all the questions that come from, what is the GBTC discount at market close today? Let's have a look. 10.53%. Right? The fact that all of these people are asking questions about, hey, what's this ETF going to be, cash back, this, that, and the other. It's great. I love it. But for most of those people, it's going to be irrelevant because you're not going to be the one buying the ETF. But I love the fact that so many people, so many young people, so many older people that have never had experience in finance, never had experience in investing, are actually asking the damn question. It's really fantastic. Someone said Bitcoin 50K by Christmas. If there's any time that it can do it, it's right now. I also think that we are going to see, if we get an ETF approval, we could see an all-time high before the halving for sure. All-time high before the halving after ETF approval. And then I think it could go and break 100,000 by the end of 2024, if not higher, and then peak out in 2025. A lot of people think it's just 1 year of bullish gains, but it's not. Remember, in the last 4 years, and I'm going to talk about the cycles in a second, but in the last cycle, it was 2020 and 2021. 2020 was the year that liquidity came in, and then 2021 was the blow-off top year. What do you guys think is going to happen to the 4-year cycles after ETF? gaming altcoins. If you mention altcoins, you get blocked. I have no patience anymore. I have no time. I have no patience. I just have this. Yeah, I don't give a shit. So, if you mention altcoins, you're blocked. Someone said, "Get angry. You're too mellow right now." I'm trying to chill. I'm trying to chill. Every time I come on a live stream, I want to chill with you guys, and then there's always some moron that gets me amped up. You think cycles stay? I can't listen to Luther Vandross right now because apparently, if I listen to Luther Vandross, it screws up the distribution on the video once it goes out. So that's where we're at. We're a slave to the system right now. Cycles revolve around the halving. What could go wrong seems nothing. Won't apply anymore. Jason, it's not scotch, it's tea. I don't drink. That's I like say it's interesting. I like saying I don't drink because the truth is I don't really drink. But once a year, twice a year, when I'm in London, I've got my favorite cognac or my like whatever. I'll enjoy a shot, right? A single. But really, I don't really drink the rest of the year. Susie asked, "Will Bitcoin?" Let me put this up. Will Bitcoin even out just like gold? More high manipulation and greed entering? Yes, BlackRock slaves. Susie, what have you been smoking, Susie? I'm smoking a cigar. What are you smoking, Susie? What are you smoking, Susie? I think that it is going to be extremely difficult for Bitcoin to even out like gold. Why? Because you have a absolute finite supply. So it's terribly hard to try and control the price of something that has a finite supply. And I'm not sure what you mean by BlackRock slaves. So, okay. A recommendation on tea. My favorite tea is from London. It's from Harrods, and it's the morning breakfast tea. I think it's the number 15. Yeah, absolutely, Joseph. I've been trying to tell people this for a while. Demand shock is going to meet supply shock, and something crazy is going to happen. What's going on with the fucking camera? Why is it not focusing? There we go. BlackRock owns everything, therefore controls it. But you're not understanding what an ETF is, Susie. An ETF is not like direct ownership of BlackRock. An ETF is an opportunity for investors to own the underlying asset by owning an ETF product. Jason said, "What do you want for Christmas?" Not much, actually. I hate it when people ask me that. Like, what do you want? Like, nothing. I'm one of the worst people to buy a gift for. Do you think we might get a pullback after the announcement of the ETFs? Yeah, everything in my experience tells me that there will be a pullback, but I could be completely wrong. Thailand Dan. This sounds like a question from someone called Thailand Dan. Who do you think is dumber? People buying shitcoins or people shorting Bitcoin? Huh. That's such a stupid question. It's actually made me think about it. Hold on. Who do you actually think? That's a really good question. Who is stupider? People who are shorting Bitcoin or people who are buying shit coins? Who do we think is dumber? That's a really interesting question. I wasn't expecting to spend this much time thinking about this question. I actually think the people buying shit coins are dumber. Someone said, why even focus on dumb people? Because we're on a live stream. This is what we do here. I think the shitcoiners are dumber. Here's why. The guys who are shorting Bitcoin have an opinion, and therefore they are placing their opinion on an asset that justifies an opinion. The people who are buying shitcoins are trying to make something out of something that they don't understand. And so therefore only a really stupid person will do that. I know intelligent people that know how to and when to short Bitcoin at the right time, right? And I can respect that as a trade craft. But I certainly cannot respect someone who's buying a shitcoin and then go, well, why are you buying this? Oh, because it's going up. That sounds dumber to me. All right, I'm glad we thrashed that one out, Dan. Catherine said, do you not think everyone has the right to choose, especially as it's their own money? Absolutely. I'm a capitalist. You have the right to make and lose money. You have the right to have a good life. You have a right to fuck your life up. I'm an equal opportunist when it comes to capitalism. I can also share my opinion. Chris said, long Bitcoin, short JP Morgan. Stop that shit. Stop that shit. You know how many gold people have gone bankrupt trying to short JP Morgan? Stop that shit. Just long Bitcoin and shut the fuck up. Any chance you forming an email list in case YouTube X gets offended? Yeah, that's coming. That's coming. John said, British, are you waiting? A lot of people have this question for me. I'm going to spend some time talking about this. Are you waiting for a certain price point when you'll sell your Bitcoin? No, but, and here we go, but I will start looking for other opportunities when the CAGR on Bitcoin, the compound annual growth rate, the 5-year compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin drops down, over a long enough time period to 25% or less. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I believe that with a slight allocation of capital elsewhere, I'll be able to generate a higher return than 25%. Now, of course, this is assuming that we're still on a dollar standard at this point. And as you guys know, I don't think we're going off a dollar standard anytime soon. I'm not part of that gang. I don't think America's going to collapse. But I certainly will never sell all of my Bitcoin unless something that is more scarcer shows up and the network effects and adoption rate and everything moves to that, which is very, very, very unlikely. I think Bitcoin is here to stay for a few hundred years at least. So basically, it'll be someone else's problem. Are you going to borrow against the Bitcoin in the future? Absolutely. But I think I'll probably be borrowing against the ETF, not the actual Bitcoin, because I just don't think it's worth risking borrowing against the actual Bitcoin. I'd much rather borrow against the ETF, get much better rates to borrow against the ETF, etc., etc. By the way, there's 700 people watching this. Hit me with a like, at least. Come on, I got my bathrobe on, I'm smoking a cigar, I'm drinking tea. We're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about BlackRock. 700 people watching this. Don't be a doom and gloom boomer. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you watch the more professional videos. Adam said, who would you borrow from? Banks? Hell no. Now you sound like $1,000 net worther, Adam. Will we be able to transfer Bitcoin to the ETF? That's what the whole point of in-kind versus cash creates and all this other stuff was. So it looks like no for the moment. You know, I was talking about the Ethereum conversation today at the cigar lounge, and this guy who's a quote-unquote trader was saying, you know, he likes the fact that Ethereum is still going up in price, etc., etc. And I said, have you valued Ethereum in Bitcoin? And he said, why would I do that? At that point, I knew exactly that he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And I had to explain, and of course, if you're watching, I'm being facetious, but I had to explain here why you would value an asset in Bitcoin. And here's the reason. If you are valuing anything, you want to value it in scarcity. And the closest thing to scarcity that we have right now is Bitcoin as an asset. So I don't really care about the dollar value of an asset because the dollar gives the illusion of stability, but it's actually guaranteed risk, right? The dollar is guaranteed risk. It is absolutely guaranteed to go down in value. So what you want to do is you want to price whatever you're looking at in Bitcoin, not in dollars. And when you do that, Ethereum continues to make new lows. It has these little spikes in the price every few years as capital seeps out and goes into it. But really, against Bitcoin, it keeps making new all-time lows. Most have to sell our Bitcoin and try to buy back lower so we can escape from the herd. Not worth being at the bottom for a decade waiting for it to safely borrow against it. This is the type of shit that's going to get you completely wrecked. This is the type of mindset that's going to get you completely and utterly fucking wrecked. Because number one, you don't know how to do that. Number two, 90% of people who try and do that end up losing. And number three, I don't think that you're in the top 10%, because if you were, you wouldn't be watching this YouTube channel. You'd be actually just doing it. So I don't think that you should try that. That's my opinion. Normandy, I don't know who you are. I would love to know what sort of age range you're in, because you have me worried at this point. You have me worried at this point. So please don't do that. You're going to fuck this up. Frick said, what would be your $1 million Bitcoin celebration cigar? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet. Frank, great question. Let's answer this. Do you think you'll stay with the Grayscale ETF or switch out? It completely depends. It depends on the fees. It depends on the launch structure. It depends on a bunch of things, but the most important thing is the fee. Right? If I find an opportunity to actually cash out and put it into another ETF with a lower fee structure, I might decide to do that. But everything depends on the fees, which is why This all of this Hunger Games is starting. That's why Bitwise has their television advert. Have I got it here? No, I don't have it here. Do you have any? Why is everyone interested in profit-taking strategies? You listen. If I had to guess, right, you're, you know, I'm gonna calm down. I'm gonna calm down. I don't have a profit-taking strategy. I have a liquidity extraction strategy for other positions besides Bitcoin, but I do not have a profit-taking strategy. Who watched Colby Covington get his ass handed to him by Leon Edwards? Did anyone watch that? Did you see Trump leave before Colby finished talking? Now, of course, I understand that it was the end of the event and the Secret Service was probably like, okay, it's time to get out of here. But it's kind of funny to see that Trump left right while he's in the middle of his speech praising him. I was very, very proud of Leon, of course, being a Brit, even though I've liked Colby in the past. We had to draw the line somewhere. And so I was very much supporting Leon, and I'm glad he did it. You know, he looked like a champion. He actually looked like a champion. He looked like someone who was not going to get emotional, was going to play the game, play it well, and got the win at the end of it. And he just did, absolutely fantastically, and I'm very, very proud of Leon Edwards. Bitcoin Man said Trump will turn pro-Bitcoin. Watch. I completely agree, because Trump turns whichever way gets the most votes. So that's why we get more people into Bitcoin. Trump is going to be pro-Bitcoin. What's the difference between the S-1 and the DTCC listing? The DTCC listing is just, the symbol of where it's of what it's gonna come out trading as, and when it's distributed amongst all of the exchanges and the brokers and everything like that. The S1 is like marketing materials, right? It's like explaining to investors and institutions exactly what's included in this ETF, how it works, etc., etc. So they are very, very different, but both crucially important. Lucas said, what do you expect to happen with Bitcoin in Argentina? Absolutely nothing, but we'll see. I don't have any hopes. Like, I don't understand how so many fucking people want to, talk about being Bitcoiners and then want to suck the dick of every politician that comes out there and says anything positive about Bitcoin. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't care about El Salvador. Like, obviously, I'm very, very happy for the Salvadorian people. And I'm extremely happy for what's going on in the country. And I think Nayib Bukele is doing much more for El Salvador than just Bitcoin. I think that when I speak to people that have visited, just the safety and everything else that's coming in. And of course, that could have all been done without Bitcoin, right? We had countries, all of our countries, extremely safe for many, many years without Bitcoin, right? This is apart from Bitcoin. So I don't really consider any politician, important when it comes to Bitcoin. Of course, Nayib Bukele, phenomenal job, and he's a marketer. He's managed to use the adoption of Bitcoin as a currency tool in the country to put El Salvador on the main stage and create a bunch of fans for El Salvador, and a lot of goodwill, investment, etc., for the Salvadorian people, and that's absolutely fantastic. But when I see people who are Bitcoiners who will shit on politicians in the United Kingdom and the US and Europe and then start supporting politicians elsewhere because they want to jump on TV, jump around, talk about Bitcoin, and act like happy hippies. I don't give a shit. I apologize. I'm extremely empathetic to why people feel the need to have a politician that they can rely on and that they can hopefully trust. But I don't have that. I don't have that need. If you don't think that any politician anywhere in the world is going to bend the knee when enough pressure is put on them, you don't understand politicians. You think just because he sits around and talks positive about Bitcoin and ending the central bank and all this other shit, do you think that's what he's going to do? Che Guevara and Fidel Castro had good intentions too. Ryan said, British, that new class of Bitcoin investors you were describing in a previous video is me. Liquidated some real estate and put about 140K into Bitcoin at 26K BTC price, long-term hold. Absolutely fantastic, Ryan. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That was my parents in 2020. And that's well, they didn't liquidate. They generated some liquidity. What the fuck is going on with this camera today? I don't understand it. Anyway, so well done. This is exactly the type buyer. And there's a Bitcoin exchange in Switzerland. I think it's called Relay, whatever. And they just put out some information today that 75% of their 2023 Q3 revenue was people selling their real estate holdings and getting into Bitcoin. What is happening to this camera? I don't understand this. Right. So this is good. This is the new type of buyer that is coming in here, and this is extremely important, right? This is a very, very important move that needs to be made, because real estate investors have overextended into real estate. You've generated a great revenue and a great profits, and now you need to diversify that for the next 30 years. Ryan, how long have you been investing in real estate? And was it an inherited business or investment opportunity, or was it something you started yourself? Someone said it's a significant part in next year's presidential election. No, it's not. No, it's not. Just because it's significant on Bitcoin Twitter, that doesn't mean it's relevant to anyone. Bitcoin's not going to be a mainstay, like extremely relevant. You think just because of Bitcoin, just imagine if the Bitcoin community says, okay, we don't think it's wise for people to chop their private parts off. But then the rest of the voting population says, we think it's wise for people to chop their private parts off. You don't think that pro-Bitcoin politician is going to suddenly change and start talking about how it's a great idea to chop your private parts off? You are delusional. When is sovereign wealth coming into Bitcoin? I don't think that comes for another 2 cycles. Someone called Satoshi said, sold a 12-unit multifamily earlier this year, ate the cap gain, invested 90% of the proceeds into Bitcoin, kept 10% for myself to enjoy. Fantastic. This is what's going to happen. This is exactly what I'm trying to say is what's going to happen. And these new buyers are not sitting around going, when do I liquidate this position? Right? They're sitting around going, okay, I got my income from my property portfolio. I've generated some liquidity from that. I'm going to put it into Bitcoin, long-term hold. Never need to sell. Never need to talk about it. Never need to think about it. It's done. And I think that, as Eric pointed out in the podcast I did with him, not a podcast, not a podcast. I don't have a podcast. The interview that I did with him, um, there is going to be a distinct difference between pre Bitcoin ETF and post Bitcoin ETF. That is going to be an extremely clear line in the sand. And you're either going to be in before or you're going to be in after. If Ryan replied, I didn't see his. Uh, let's see. I was talking to a 72-year-old today who told me he bought Bitcoin in 2015 before me. Think about that. Think about that. These guys, these people, right? Not just guys, these people understand what it means to hold on to assets and never ever let go of them. Because that's what they've done their entire life. They've seen the benefits of it. I'm not talking about the losers who think trading is a good idea and who think speculating is a good idea. I'm not talking about those. In fact, name me one person in the top 10, 20, 30 richest people in the world that's a trader. That's a trader. Name me one. The only one might be, but I don't know how you could. I don't think you can classify him as a trader. But maybe, well, I guess so. Maybe Paul Tudor Jones, but that's it. Traders are not that highly represented in the wealthy rankings. Why? Because trading requires such skill that if you were doing that, you wouldn't have time to watch this video. If you are a quote unquote trader and you're watching fucking YouTube videos, you are not like that elite trader up there that is going to be a multi-billionaire, right? It's just not going to happen. You're not doing that. You might be a trader, you might be able to make enough money to have a really, really, really good life. You might be able to make enough money to have a really, really, really good life. I have friends who are traders and they have a really good life. But you ain't gonna be a multi-billionaire. What's required for that is hodling, assets, companies, businesses, real estate. That's what's required. Holding it forever and ever and ever. And when somebody else wants it, you tell them to get fucked until they pay you more. And then they offer to pay you more and you tell them to get fucked again. That is what allows somebody to build wealth over the long term. Ryan said, started myself, bought 2 homes in my 20s, currently 30. Homes worth about $700K in total. Sold 1 home since 90% of my wealth was in real estate. Real estate told me to zoom out 5, 10, 20-year timelines. Absolutely. Ryan is a slightly younger version of the demographic that I'm talking to, and he's done extremely well in his life, and that's absolutely fucking amazing. But do you know how many more people are 40, 50, 60 who have been doing what Ryan has done for 35, 40 years, like my parents? Right? They've been through all the ups and downs. They've been through the time where they had to struggle and they didn't sell their property portfolio because that was more important. They've made the sacrifices. Right? They've done the work. And now they get to benefit from that work because they get to apply it to Bitcoin. Would you pull dollars out of an IRA to take self-custody despite the tax penalty? You need to speak to a tax advisor about that. Would I be pulling money out if I had a real Bitcoin? I would figure out a way to do it in the least tax hit way. But I would prioritize self-custody of some Bitcoin. It depends, right? Like if you've got 30 Bitcoin, that's going to be slightly different to if you've got 0.3 of a Bitcoin. So it just depends. Bobby said the ETF news. Here we go. The ETF news talks about an in-kind purchase and redemptions, and the articles aren't clear. There's a big difference. Cash redemption is bullshit. You need to get the actual Bitcoin. Firstly, Bobby, I don't know what your position is. I don't know what your status is as far as your Bitcoin holdings go, but you're talking like a little bit of a doom and gloom boomer and a conspiracy theorist that doesn't understand how financial markets work. Most ETFs are cash redemption. You sell it, and they send you back the cash, right? That's normal process of how a market works. This is extremely normal. The difference between an in-kind and a cash creates is the process of buying, and when you're selling, you can allow some redemptions. But you can allow some redemptions, you know, in either way. Most people that take redemptions from an ETF, firstly, most people don't want redemptions from an ETF, because if they wanted redemptions, they'd go buy the underlying asset to start with. So the reason they're buying the ETF is so they don't have to fuck around with any other redemptions part of it, right? Because if they really wanted to buy the underlying asset, they would just go buy the underlying asset in the beginning and place it on the books and go through the work of that. But they're doing it because they want to take advantage of the ease that has with that. Right, and if you want to, so basically, there's going to be there is certainly a difference between in-kind and cash creates, right? Certainly a difference. Otherwise, there would be no debate about it. But the point I'm trying to make is, I don't think you need to be that worried about it, because you're not going to be the target market of this product, right? At some point in the future, we may get an in-kind ETF, but at this point, if we get a cash creates ETF, it's not going to make much of a problem, because most people who want to take custody are going to end up taking custody of the ETF, of the Bitcoin. So this is not a big product. I mean, not a big problem. RK said, say what you will about traders, but that's how I got my first full Bitcoin. I'm not saying anything negative about traders. Like I said, most traders that I know, most of them end up losing money, but the traders that I know live a very, very good life by trading. It's just whether you believe you have what it takes. And if you're a top trader, you ain't watching YouTube videos. So it is what it is. Is it possible that Qatar or Saudi buys, say, $20 billion prior to the ETF to offset the downslide of oil production to include the price? And if so, what would that push the price to? $8.9 million per Bitcoin? No, not with $20 billion. It's possible anyone does anything, right? Of course, anyone can buy it. But, that whole Qatar is going to buy $500 billion when their sovereign wealth fund is like $475 billion. It was quite entertaining. I love the parabolic nature of Bitcoin. It's great. And the Bitcoiners, rather. It's like, yeah, Qatar is going to buy $500 billion of Bitcoin. What's the value of their sovereign wealth fund? Oh, $475 billion. Okay, cool. So we're telling people not to go leverage into Bitcoin, and apparently Qatar is going to leverage into Bitcoin, yeah? Okay. With 100% of their sovereign wealth fund. Okay, cool, makes sense. But yeah, any of these countries could be buying Bitcoin to put on the balance sheet. Nobody knows about it, etc., etc. So absolutely that could be happening. Do I think it's happening? No, I don't think it's happening. because I think all of these countries are going to have their capital managed by somebody like BlackRock, and when BlackRock says, "Hey, you should probably get into this," that's when I think they'll get into it. Bobby says, for in-kind redemptions, an ETF issuer exchanges the fund's underlying securities with the market maker to create and redeem shares rather than transacting in cash. Yeah, but do you understand that from a client-facing perspective, this is not something that most people are going to be worried about? My point to you is, of course, there's a difference, but this is not something that is going to be a huge issue for most investors. Steve said, why pay ETF fees? Custody your own Bitcoin ETFs are for big money. Absolutely, completely agree with you. The world doesn't agree with you, but I completely agree with you. Explain to me how BlackRock controlling the top miners is a good thing. Firstly, BlackRock capital going into mining companies is a great thing because it sets the standard that in those companies are investable. And then also it allows those companies to have a guaranteed flow of capital coming in from someone like BlackRock to be able to continue operating and strengthening the network inside the USA. Do I think that BlackRock's going to benefit from owning the miners? Of course, BlackRock's not doing anything without a benefit. Guys, do you know today? Apparently, I learned that Hungary is the only country that in Europe that has a growing birth rate. Can someone check that for me? I was blown away by it. And you know why they got it, right? They basically changed the policy and they said if a woman has 4 babies, she never has to pay income tax ever again in her life. This whole population crisis that we are steaming into is going to be quite awful. And it makes me certainly question my own decisions up to now, in terms of when I'm going to start having children. But it's quite fascinating that a country like Hungary has managed to change this and spin this around real quick, right? It's pretty damn quick. Last time I think it was only a few years ago that I saw that they'd said if you have 4 babies, you can not pay income tax. Yeah, people are saying it's facts. The other thing people are not talking about, by the way, when it comes to Bitcoin, is that you might get an ETF, but what people completely miss is that because of the ETF, you now get to utilize derivatives on top of the ETF. So you might have 50 million, like during the housing crisis of '08, there was $50 million of mortgages being issued, but $1 billion being traded as securities on top of those mortgages. Now, a lot of people are scared by that, right? But really, that's how the market works. So you could have a bunch of capital coming into the market on the derivative side of it because of the ETF. I'll certainly utilize the calls and put side of having an active ETF when I want to place positions, right? And so if I'm going to do it, of course the big banks are going to do it. So you could have, say $300 billion over a few years come into the ETF, as people have been saying. But on top of that, you could have like, I don't know, $4 or $5 trillion on top of that in the derivatives markets, which is huge. Ryan says the things you say about $1,000 net worthers and happy hippies are so true. I work for one of the big 4 on accounting software. Seeing Larry Fink tout Bitcoin is honestly unreal. Absolutely. Ryan, most people don't understand this because they don't come from that world. They don't come from the world of going, you know, They just think that, oh, this is just their right for it to happen. Like, of course, Larry Fink should tout Bitcoin. It's not miraculous. I thought it was fucking miraculous. And of course, as you guys have seen, Bitcoin is now ESG as well. And I basically laid that out for you a week after the ETF was filed, because that's how important it is. Robin says a derivative seems counter to the reason Bitcoin exists. Yeah, but nobody gives a shit. This is the point you got to understand. Nobody gives a shit about why Bitcoin exists. The broader market I'm talking about. They don't care. They're in it to make a profit. And if they can make a profit by using derivatives to drive the price up, that's what they're going to do. Is Grayscale going to be included in the initial ETFs? Theirs was not quite the same as the others. I believe so. That would be the best way for the SEC to send Grayscale a fuck you. Because imagine on day one, everyone gets approved. I don't think they would play favorites. I think that would be kind of complicated. But imagine if on day one, they approved every single person that applied for an ETF. And now Grayscale has to compete with BlackRock on day one. That's probably the smartest way to send a fuck you to Grayscale for the lawsuit loss. Bobby said Bitcoin is for everyone to do what they want. Sure, and that's why most people don't hold their assets in their own hand in a bearer instrument way, and so therefore most people will not hold Bitcoin like that. I know all the Bitcoin maxis love that idea, but it ain't gonna happen. Not for a while. But yeah, the Europe conversation around Hungary was fascinating to me. I like that this camera tracks my head now. It's quite interesting. Bobby said it's kind of scary moving $200,000 around with just a bunch of numbers. Absolutely, and most people don't want that problem. Lou said, do you think crypto robbery will increase? Of course. That's why I have mine set up in the way that I have it set up. Multi-sig, 3 different jurisdictions. Even if I wanted to fucking touch it, I can't. Steve said, Derek is here somewhere. I can feel it. It's funny. I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that. Brian said, you're probably right. If you're not in the world of finance, you may not know that asset classes are measured in trillions. 1% of 30 trillion unlocked would send the price soaring. Of course. It took about $300 billion coming into an asset that has 118 to 1 multiplier effect. You're talking multiple millions of dollars of Bitcoin if that comes in a very, very short period of time. And by the way, when I say short period of time, most people that don't understand how finance works, they think that I'm talking about next 3 months. I'm not. 5 years is a short period of time when it comes to assets this big and to institutions this big. Jen said, can you go over how you have your multi-sig set up and how we can go about doing the same? So I work with Casa, and they basically arrange it so that you have a bunch of keys, you program those keys, you store those keys, and in order for you to move any Bitcoin, you need a signature from multiples of those keys. And the way I chose to set it up was to take the extra added expense and move those keys to different jurisdictions that would require me taking a plane in order to get access to them. They're behind security, they're behind people with guns, they're behind all this other stuff, and I don't have a backup of the word phrases. So if I wanted to literally replicate that wallet right now for you, I could not do that. I need to travel to the place to do it. So I work with Casa to do that. Ryan said, "What's your thoughts on the first day the ETF goes live trading?" I think it's gonna. I don't know about the first day, but the first week is certainly going to be phenomenal. The fact that there's all this marketing going on already is phenomenal. So I think it's definitely. I believe it will be the biggest ETF launch in history. Now, here's the thing: the fact that there's 8 of them, 10 of them, is a problem, right? So it's not going to be like it's going to get tracked like, oh, this BlackRock ETF got the biggest, etc., etc. But I think the way we'll have to look at it is what is the inflow for all of the funds together, and that's how you're going to be able to judge it. But I think it will be the biggest net inflow for a ETF product combined that we'll see. Do you think the ETF is a bigger deal than the halving in terms of price appreciation? Yes, but they work together. I don't know what's going to happen to these 4-year cycles, by the way. I genuinely can't figure it out. Because when you look at the price and the chart of gold, what you saw was that you just had 8 straight up years for gold. So, and that was through the volatility of 2008. So what happens to a asset that has true finality of supply? I don't know. I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens here. I certainly think that the cycles become less relevant. That's for sure. As this ETF comes into view and starts trading, I think they become much less relevant. I think the cycles become much, much, much less relevant. I also think that the diminishing returns argument is going to struggle too. I think that's going to be the model that breaks. Matthew said, "Do you think more inflow will significantly take place when Bitcoin exceeds the price of gold?" Yes. Yes. Go watch my video on why other ETFs are irrelevant in other parts of the world. You can't judge that like that. The U.S. directs the world's capital markets. Okay. Eden said, "What do you think about XRP?" Here's what I think about XRP. Timeout. Ryan said, "Do you think BITO will continue to bleed Contango?" I also pepper the Bitcoin position with options on BITO. See, this is an interesting conversation now. Do you think BITO will continue to bleed Contango? I also pepper the Bitcoin position with options on BITO long calls, currently up 20K on 143 contracts. Yeah, I think BITO is going to struggle once a spot. It's going to be very, very short term, so I don't know how long dated your long calls are. But for me personally, if I was going to take a long call position, I much prefer doing it on the miners than on BITO. BITO will work when there's an aggressive push up, but I would probably close the position as soon as possible because of the nature of the futures. So if I was going to do it, like I would go by, end of 2025 or something like that, call options for like Hut, for example, or Mara, rather than trying to, uh, you know, fuck around with BITO. But that's what I would do. Thailand Dan said an 80% retrace, an 80%. And by the way, if you're going to buy call options on the miners, during the bear market, it was much better just to acquire the actual miners, right? Because of the premiums, the cost of the premiums. So that might be a position too. And then you don't have to worry about, you're going to get your 3x return compared to Bitcoin, and then you don't have to worry about the expiration dates. An 80% retrace seems impossible after the ETF. Nobody can convince me that we'll ever see 50K Bitcoin again after the cycle. Too much dumb money will get flushed out. Yeah, I think the dumb money gets flushed out between the end of the next cycle and the beginning of the next one after that. But I still think there'll be enough retail capital here to cause some volatility. This camera is crazy today. I have no idea what's going on. This is wow. I got so much bullshit because of this question, or because of this post. In a recent post, you stated that one of our priorities should be to establish inheritance procedures. Do you do that through CASA as well, or are there other recommendations you have? I have that through CASA and my lawyers. Through CASA and my lawyers. I put out a tweet and I said, I'm going to find the tweet because people lost their fucking minds over it. And that's how you know they exposed themselves to being $1,000 net worthers. Let's find this tweet. Right, here's the tweet. I'm going to read this out to you, okay? I'll read out as much as I see relevant. Nunchuck, I posted this like 3 days ago, or something like that. December 15th, yeah, 3 days ago. Nunchuck, Trezor, Ledger, Cold Card, Casa, Unchained, all irrelevant if you don't have your estate set up correctly to protect your Bitcoin legally. I have people telling me all the time, oh my God, look at this new wallet. Bullshit. Lawyer first, then technical stuff. This is what $1,000 net worthers get wrong. Lawyer, then technical details. Who owns your Bitcoin? Who controls your Bitcoin? Who has a claim against your Bitcoin? Where are your keys located? What jurisdictional advantages can you have? What happens to your Bitcoin if you die? And no, sitting in a jail cell saying through the bars, ha, I won't give up my Bitcoin because I lost it in a boating accident, is not winning. Find a good lawyer and a tax planner with as much interest and passion as you decide your cold wallet, if not more. People lost their fucking minds over this tweet. Their minds were blown. Their minds were blown. You need to get a good team around you, and that team is going to involve lawyers, it's going to involve accountants, it's going to involve tax planners. It's going to be about, it's going to involve all these people. Because you want to make sure on the right side of the law, you want to make sure everything's okay. Like, what are we talking about here? I was shocked at how many people lost their shit over that tweet. No, I don't have any feelings about them. Good luck to them. Rand said, agreed. BIT option sellers were offering 1 to 2 year out close to 70 cents, so I scoped some up. Why not? Apparently the sellers are based out of Asia and didn't realize how popular the ETF was. Yeah, but I would just be careful because of the nature of the underlying asset on BITO. But 70 cents sounds like a good play. What is that drink? It is English Taylor's bedtime tea. Matthew says, any chance of you starting a Bitcoin only exchange? Fuck no. Let's talk about a Bitcoin exchange, right? So all these Bitcoin exchanges coming out saying we do $500 million, $1 billion, $400 million, $200 million, whatever of revenue. And then I asked a question on Twitter, and even Block basically turned around and said in their recent filings that the $500 million or whatever it is the amount of Bitcoin they've actually sold. So let's talk about the profitability of a Bitcoin exchange. A Bitcoin exchange that says, let's just say $100 million, right? $100 million. And they're charging a fee to stay competitive against Coinbase of 1%. Well, now that fee is going to be $1 million. And you need an army of people sitting there to promote your exchange and compete against and outcompete Coinbase. And so you're probably going to have a burn rate of more than $1 million a year trying to compete with Coinbase at this point. So why would you ever, at this point, set up a Bitcoin-only exchange? Do you understand that there is a reason why no Bitcoin-only exchange has gone public? Who the fuck would want to take it public? Right? Who would want to take it public? It doesn't make any sense. As a business, right? We can talk about the happy hippie nature of all of it and, I'm going to serve the world and whatever. But if you're going to take a company public, you want it to actually make some damn money. So I feel quite interesting. I want to speak to some of the investors of some of these Bitcoin-only exchanges and figure out how they're feeling. Because Coinbase is here to take your shit. The ETFs are here to take your shit. What are you doing? You're going to sell $100 million of Bitcoin and make $1 million? And you got to outcompete Coinbase. You got to outcompete everyone in order to just make that $1 million? Why would you bother? I reckon that most of these companies have got a burn rate higher than the profit that they're actually making. They'll tell you that they've got revenues of $100 million, but you got to multiply that by the fee, and that's their true gross revenue. So why the hell would you get involved in that business? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I apologize for anyone who's emotionally attached, but it doesn't make any sense. If anyone can justify it for me, I would love to hear it. Besides the happy hippie bullshit. Justify it in numbers. It is a business at the end of the day. I reckon that all of these little fringe Bitcoin-only exchanges won't make it past the next cycle. They will not make it past the next cycle. That's my belief. You got to look at things for what it is. If it's a business, it's a business. Eric's fund is different, right? Eric's fund is different. What Eric is doing is providing the ability for people who don't want to deal with the hassle of custodying their own Bitcoin. And he's basically allowing people to do it for a 1% flat fee with no performance fee. It's completely different. And actually that fund, the structure of his fees is phenomenal for a fund like that, managing a fringe asset at this point like Bitcoin. right? And it's for high net worth individuals that don't give a shit, don't want to know, just want to give it to someone that knows what they're doing, once it's safe, and then basically once it accounted for, um, you know, easily. They don't want to deal with anything. That's completely different to having a Bitcoin exchange. Ryan said that British, I think we get to 1 million Bitcoin faster than people think. 85% of humans have a smartphone. Information spreads a lot faster than the past. Tech accelerates trends and options. Absolutely. And retail doesn't even matter anymore after the ETF. Bart said, what are the obstacles the pension funds have to overcome to bring their cash to Bitcoin? ETF. ETF. I've been saying this. ETF. I reckon Coinbase or one of these other bigger exchanges will be buying up all these fringe Bitcoin only exchanges for the value of their customer list. I think that there's exchanges out here, companies out here that, if I was to mention them, I think you guys will be shocked, that probably have a higher burn rate and expense ratio than the amount of money they're making. It's probably costing to keep them alive. And investors are not going to do that forever. So hopefully they find a way out. Hopefully the investors get some capital out. Otherwise, I don't think they last past the next cycle. That's why I don't want to invest in any Bitcoin startups. I don't give a shit. I do not want to invest in any Bitcoin startups. I understand sometimes people need something to do, and that makes sense. But the big boys are here now. Someone called me a statist just because I said the big boys are here. I said, well, if you think that investing in a Bitcoin startup for the sake of your emotions is what? Smart. That's up to you. I don't. I'd rather hold the Bitcoin. The problem is no one's judging their investments with a hurdle rate of Bitcoin, right? And that's because people don't understand what the fuck a hurdle rate is. It's the minimum return that your investments must generate to be worth it. And if the hurdle rate, you place your hurdle rate as Bitcoin, now everything else has to be higher than Bitcoin. So how a hedge fund works is that they'll say, our hurdle rate is 9%. So if we don't make at least 9%, you don't pay any fees. Right? And that's how everyone should be thinking about their Bitcoin. Whatever the 10-year CAGR of Bitcoin is, if whatever you're looking at does not make that or more, you shouldn't even be thinking about it. You should just be holding the Bitcoin. That's why, one of my goals in life as a passion thing is to set up cigar members clubs in multiple parts of the world. And I'll do that at some point. But right now, it doesn't. A friend of mine was like, you should do that right now. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense right now. This is a really important question that Ryan asks right now. Global real estate market is 250 trillion. It's actually 330 trillion. What percentage of that do you think is investors storing value? Even if we took 1% of that, you start getting to millions per Bitcoin. Absolutely. Ryan, sounds like you've been paying attention. Good. I love it. Matthew, what do you mean next video topic? All right, guys, let's do a few minutes of any non-Bitcoin related questions. Few minutes of non-Bitcoin related questions. If anyone has any, that is. What's your ethnicity? I'm African Indian. My dad is Indian, my mom is Indian, but my dad is from Africa, my mom is from India. Bobby said, BH, you might even convince governments about Bitcoin to keep investors from holding empty real estate. Of course. Of course. Go watch the videos, the 3 videos that I did on it, on real estate. Bart said, where do you like to vacation? I like the beach. So if I'm going to, I like the beach. Daniel said, can I get a shout out? It's my birthday and a great one. Happy birthday, Daniel. My tax residency is in Dubai. And go study the tax of Dubai and you will understand. Sailor Energy said, come to Arkansas, we can ride dirt bikes on my 18 acres. Yeah, I'll definitely consider that for sure. No, I don't like to fish. Best cigar brand, Cuban Partagas or Nicaraguan Padron? Someone said, I love Medellin. What would your advice be to someone who wants to escape Canada and move to Colombia full time in real estate sales here in Toronto but want out ASAP? I would say figure out a way to make money over there before you move to somewhere like Colombia. Would you buy an EV or prefer gas? I will not buy a fucking EV. I had a Tesla for a month. I hated it. Do you dip your cigar in cognac? I've obviously tried it, but I don't know. Do you think the Fed does 3 or more rate cuts next year? I think it will be more. But I certainly think that we'll have a rate cut by April. Move to Thailand. No thanks. What's your preferred cigar humidity? 68, 69. Why didn't you like your Tesla? Firstly, the quality is shit. Secondly, the thing drives really fast in a straight line, but try maneuvering that thing. Thirdly, I hate the fucking charging element of it. Now, obviously, I don't have a charger at my home in London, and I think maybe that would make it different, but I just don't like the charging element of it. There's a lot of reasons. I'm used to German cars, and American cars feel like pieces of shit. So that's why. Do you ever play video games? No. If you tell me to sell my XRP, I'll sell it now. You got to do what's right for you. AI investing us. What's your favorite type of girl? What does that even mean? Bitmat said, any indications of a black swan event next year? If I had an idea, it wouldn't really be a black swan, would it? What is your type of woman? Something I've been thinking about actually. For me, I do not really care for a woman who and this is obviously from my life, I don't really care for a woman who wants to try and compete and build a economic or business style partnership. My empire consists, I had this amazing conversation once with this old woman, and she was amazing, and she had a beautiful relationship with her husband. And I asked her, I was like, we were just talking about relationships at the time. And I had gone through a breakup, and I was just talking with her about this. She gave me the most beautiful analogy ever. She said the beautiful thing about, my relationship, I'm talking as her, is that it's like an old painting in an old mansion, right? If you've ever seen an old mansion or an old painting, you see that it's normally got a big, thick border frame and the beautiful painting on the inside, and the whole thing is just an art piece. And she said, I'll never ever forget this. She said, my husband is the big, thick frame on the outside. And because he is the big, thick frame on the outside, I get to be the beautiful painting on the inside. And together, we're an art piece. And that's just such a beautiful way of describing a relationship, right? Like a man is supposed to focus on the outside world so that the woman can make the inside world blossom. That to me is a good. See, some of these asshole comments over here. It's gonna get you blocked. Right? This is such a beautiful analogy. Favorite comedian right now, Andrew Schultz. Your thoughts on World War III not coming? Martin, I had a Tesla Model 3. When are you coming to the States? I always pop in and out. Nobody really knows about it. I think I'll be there in sometime in the next month for like 2 days. But not for any event or anything like that. It's just business stuff. Favorite film? It's interesting. I really love the Christian Bale Batman series with Christopher Nolan. Like all three of them. Thoughts on you'll own nothing and be happy? I guess most people own nothing right now. They just got to get them happy. Bitcoin Man said the Model 3 handles on curves just fine, man. I had a Model 3 Performance and it handles just like a German. Now I have an MXP and it doesn't handle as well, but fast as fuck. Whatever. This is not my type. I'm not a car guy, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I think Nico is entertaining when he's talking about watches. AI Investing said Western values or more traditional values will go. I think by me explaining what I just said, I think that should have answered that question. I'm more on the traditional side. My Holiday said, my woman is a Bitcoin maxi. She loves your live chat, and when you go off on dudes like Derek, cool. I appreciate that. Owl said, would you rather date a 20-year-old virgin girl or a 30-year-old successful career woman? Come on. You really got to ask that question. Any thoughts on Elon Musk? I think Elon Musk is single-handedly given permission to everyone to tell elitist morons to get fucked. And I love it. Even though I don't really think Vivek is going to win, the fact that he's out on stage telling everybody to get fucked because Elon Musk gave permission to do that, basically, is great. Any thoughts on the state of British automakers or sports car make market in general? Not really, not really. Um, I still think Rolls Royce is the best British car, probably the best car in the world. Actually, no, no, that's not true. It's the best car to be driven in the world. I think Porsche is probably the best car in the world. Porsche and Mercedes, those are my favorites. But again, I don't know nothing about cars. I'm not a car guy. How much time do you think it would take? Oh, that's a Bitcoin question. How much time between the ETF approval and trading? I think less than a month. Favorite watch brand, Patek Philippe. Would you get a pilot's license so you could fly around plane? No. One of the things I do want in my life is a private jet. So that will be one day. Any opinion on the UFO issue? Do you think the government is covering up? No, I think they're covering up other technology, but I don't think they're covering up aliens. Thoughts on the current UK government? What a joke. What an absolute joke. But just like the USA, the UK is not run by the government. It's run by interests that know how to keep stability, no matter what's going on in politics. Are you a fan of Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones? Of course, who can't be? Even if you think even if you think they're crazy, who's not a fan? Who is not a fan of someone who gets, uh, you know, 90% of every crazy thing he said turns out true? It's crazy, right? I think Tucker Carlson is the most important person in media at this point. Again, whether you agree with him or not, I think he's done a fantastic move. Tucker Carlson has basically done to the media organizations what Andrew Tate did to the social media organizations. And I think it's great. Catherine said, "What do your parents think about you swearing on your YouTube channel?" They obviously don't like it. Favorite alcoholic beverage? As I said, I don't really drink, but when I have one drink a year or two drinks a year, it's probably going to be cognac or tequila, a good tequila or a good cognac. Yeah, I agree. Getting fired from Fox was the best thing that could have happened to Tucker for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the world right now. A friend of mine actually said, he goes, the world has never been more interesting to observe, and also never been less pleasant to observe. And that's really, I very much agree with that. We're living in a very, very interesting time right now. And everyone is going to be faced with choices and challenges that will cause you to take sides. But I think that a lot of people are afraid of taking sides. A lot of people are afraid of drawing the line somewhere. And yes, I do agree. I think we are in a fourth turning. If you've never read that book, I highly recommend it. You know, it's extremely important to understand what your values are and to stand firm on those values. It's extremely important to do that. I think that we are entering a world where if you don't have a firm position, you are going to be tested more than you can imagine. So I think it's the wisest thing to do is have a firm position on what you think is happening in the world so you can tell people to get fucked when you need to. And you can also recognize people when you need to for who they are. But yeah, this is where we're at. It is an interesting world, and that's why I'm out here trying to get people to one Bitcoin as fast as possible, and as urgently as possible, because there is going to be a day where this completely changes, right? This completely changes. The paradigm completely changes. And I don't want people sitting there knowing that it was going to happen to miss out on it because they just couldn't put the effort in. So do what you can, do what you must. The fact that these S1s are coming in, coming in fast, right? These updates are coming in fast. This is being prepared for launch at this point. Stop wasting time. Get to one Bitcoin. And ultimately, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy. I love you guys. If I don't speak to you on a live before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas. I know that's illegal to say in some countries now. And I will definitely see you before the new year. So Merry Christmas, and enjoy the rally that should be coming as we enter into the last final days of trading for this crazy year of 2023.